tonight? Are we good? All right. How many Bat fans do we have out here? I'm wearing my Bat shirt. You know, I have to give props to my grandpa for what he did, you know? So let me ask you guys, who created Batman? Do you know his name?
Nope.
Okay, so for 76 years, whose name was attached to it? Do we know? Whose name was on the comic book? Whose name appeared on the TV show, the cartoons, the movies, the everything?
Bob Kane.
Bob Kane! Whose last name was actually Khan? How villainous is that? Right? Well, actually, Bob Kane was a villain and is outright. He has a bad reputation in the business, unfortunately, for stealing material from the people that he hired. Whoa. All right, so yes, the co-creator and original writer of Batman, yes, that was my grandfather. And recently, he has received credit for his contributions to the Batman name and universe. Just this past year, you could see his name on the big screen in the Batman versus Superman movie. That's the first time that's ever happened. It was a huge deal. Okay, think of this. For 76 years, someone was ripping off on your idea. That's exactly what happened here. Bob Kane met my grandfather. If we could go to the picture of my grandfather, which is the next slide, please. Someone's slacking on their job over there. I'm just teasing you. Thank you. All right, so this is pre-Batman. I would say this is maybe 38. Batman came out in 39. 38 was when Superman came out. So this is Bill Finger, right here, in all of his swagness of the 30s, right? He actually was selling shoes before he was writing for Batman. And he met Bob Kane at a party. They actually went to the same high school, but they didn't know each other. They were in different grades. Bob Kane was older, yes. And so Bill had expressed on how he wanted to be a writer to Bob Kane. Bob Kane had already had his own cartoon studio when he met my grandfather. And so when he went to National Comics, which is DC Entertainment now, in response to the Superman comic book, they wanted another, superhero with villains and the whole thing. So Bob Kane said, all right, how much are the Superman boys making? They were making a few $100 a week, which was a lot in the 30s. You got to think. Depression, war, all that fun stuff going on, right? So he said, okay, I'll come up with something over the weekend. So he called my grandfather and said, you know what, I have a sketch for this comic that I really want to pitch and do, and so come help me. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this first picture here is somebody's interpretation of what the original Batman looked like before Bob Kane even talked to my grandfather. Holy cow, what a difference, right? Bright red, blonde hair, stiff wings. That's not even the full image, okay? So he went to my grandfather and said, hey, I got this concept for this character, the Bat-Man. He's going to fight villains and stuff. Yeah, well, my grandfather said, yeah, well, that's not scary in any way. And he looks way too much like like Superman. Bright colors, you know, the blonde hair is not really doing it either, right? So what had happened was Bill had said, well, if you're going to call him a bat, let's actually make him look like a bat. So as you can see here, with the first appearance of Batman, we have the cowl, we have the more free-flowing wings, which is actually his cape with the scallop tips. Okay, he changed the complete color scheme. You know, bats are nocturnal, they're dark, they got the browns going on and things like that. So you want something that, you know, some kind of color scheme that he's going to fade into the shadows. So he said, you know, let's change it to the blacks, the blues, the grays. You know, let's cover his face. Let's make him more mysterious. Okay? And if you notice, you never see any definition of his eyes. That's also to create this mysterious facade of this man coming down from the shadows and he's going to kick your ass. Okay? So as you can see, very, very drastically different. The writer is actually the one who has come up with the Batman that we know and love. Very drastic, right? If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay. Bill also, during that time, tapped into this new genre of comic book writing. And he created some other characters other than just Batman. He actually came up with the original Green Lantern character. Of course, it's not the Green Lantern that we see today. But without this character here, we wouldn't have the current Green Lantern that we have today. And he created the Green Lantern with another man. I'm sorry, his name's slipping my mind right now. And they took this original concept and they changed it many years later to what we have with the green suit and the different characters' name and those. We also have the character Wildcat. He did not grow as popular as some of the other characters that he did, but they have brought him out into some of the comics, into some of the cartoons also, so you can see him a little bit out there. And then this is, you know, during the 40s when the big boom was going on. And he also wrote for Superman a little bit. He didn't just write for DC. He also wrote for Marvel and many of the other pop magazines he would write for. He was not exclusive to only one studio during that time. He felt like he really needed to get his stories told anywhere and everywhere that he could get the job. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so Bill Finger did something that no other comic book writer ever did. Does anybody know what that is? No, he actually jumped from writing just for comic books into other mediums. These are actually two sci-fi movies that he had written with other people. The Green Slime is the more famous one that he worked on. And then the other one, Track of the Moon Beast. Now, both of these have been featured on Mystery Theater 3000. So if you want to check them out, they are out there. Yeah, they're campy, but you got to think of the times. It was the 60s. There was a lot of bad horror and sci-fi coming out during that time. Well, he tapped into that. He fully wanted to get every medium of writing that he could. He felt it was that important that he explored every option. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, does anybody know who this character is? The Clock King. This is another thing that Bill Finger was the first and only comic writer to ever do. He wrote an episode for the Batman TV series during the 60s. He wrote The Clock King. He was the only one who ever wrote for the strip to ever be asked to write for the TV series. The Clock King was actually a 2-part episode, and he worked on it with one of his best friends. And the story behind this, because I was actually met Charles Sinclair, who is Bill's best friend, and he said, listen, have you ever noticed the credits for that particular episode? And maybe a little kid, you don't notice these things, right? You're a kid, you're watching the show, you don't care about the credits. Who cares about that? It's just words, right? Well, he said to me, Athena, did you know that Bill's name appears first for a reason? I go, well, really? What's that reason? He goes, well, one day when we finished the episode, he came to me and he said, listen, Charles, you know my situation. I've never gotten credit for Batman, and I really want my name to be attached to something. Just something. And so Charles, being sympathetic to his situation, said, Bill, of course. You are a brilliant writer. You should have every credit for every story you ever told. And he put his name first in the credits for this episode to honor that. Because he never got credit within his lifetime. He died before he ever got any recognition for Batman, which was his greatest accomplishment. Pretty sad. If we could go to the, I think there's one more slide. Okay, so there he is. This is the most common picture of my grandfather that you'll find online. He did die in 1974 with no fame, no money, alone, in an apartment, broke, with no family around him, no friends around him, and he died. This great man who created this character that has lasted and surpassed most comic books died with no fame, no money, and nobody around him. The saddest story I would ever have to tell. He doesn't even have a gravesite, doesn't have a plaque, has no recognition until this year. So this was a big deal for this man to get the recognition for this great character that he molded. He was so meticulous with his stories. He was constantly late, as most artists do, because they're perfectionists and they never feel their art is good enough. He would do tons of research. He had a black book, like most artists do, with ideas, phrases, concepts, anything and everything. When he passed away, my father went to D.C. with a box of all this memorabilia from his office and said, here, this is worth something. Do you want it? And they said, no. We don't want it. We don't have space for it. We don't have storage. We don't want it. So all that stuff ended up in the dumpster. Unfortunately, it is somewhere in the New York City wastelands. Very, very tragic. Very tragic. So the moral of this particular story is you better watch your back and better protect yourself. If you have a great idea and you want to market it, you better get your name attached to it as soon as possible. And make sure that you trust the people that you are working with, because what did Bob Kane do and what is he known for? Tapping into other people's talent and taking it for himself. It happens every day, you guys, especially in the comic book business. Unfortunately, it is still, to this day, practiced. So, we can learn from this story, and we can take from Bill's story that whether you are a brilliant writer, creator, actor, some kind of creator, please make sure you protect yourself, because there's always someone out there who is trying to take from you. Unfortunately, he got taken from for 76 years, but no longer. He has his credit, and that's what we celebrate today. Thank you so much, and have a great night.
Holy smokes. Who saw the last Batman? Yeah, it's in the credits in the beginning. It's there in the beginning. Awesome. Well, folks, I know there's some questions, please. Question over here.
Who spoke for him? Advocated.
Who was his advocate?
I was actually the only one that could fight DC for any kind of recognition for him. My grandfather passed away in '74. My father passed away in '92. We were both told for many, many years that it was a lost cause. Don't pursue it. Don't do anything. There's nothing you can do. It's only more recently with the boom of the internet and everybody sharing information that things were able to progress as quickly as they did. Coming up with the 75th anniversary at the time, we felt that the timing was right to go ahead and pursue the credit for Bill and make sure that he gets the recognition that he deserved.
Well, you heard it there. We have one more question. One more question. Yeah, she kind of gave it. She spilled the beans. Oh wait, here's one more. Was it a challenge? Was it really scary?
It wasn't necessarily scary because once I was introduced into the DC family in 2008, pretty much across the board, everybody wanted Bill's name to be attached to it. But of course, contracts and laws get in the way. So there's a way that we have to figure out to get around them. You know, they used this Bob Kane contract for a long time to hide behind the fact that they could not give Bill credit. But when there's a will, there's a way, right? And so it wasn't necessarily scary or intimidating. It was more, how are we going to make history correct? Where everybody is okay and everybody's protected. Because I understand, once a contract's in place, you gotta kind of honor it unless there's a way, a loophole, right? Well, we found a way with the wording to be able to add Bill's name to things. And that's pretty much what it was. It was a negotiation, you talk. Yes, it took a long time. It wasn't that easy. But, you know, when it came down to it, we all wanted the same thing. Bill's name to be attached to his creation. And so, intimidating, no. A pain in the ass, yes, because there's a lot of laws. And luckily, I had a great team of people who are helping me with this because I don't know laws. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a math teacher. What do I know about laws, right? So, I mean, it really takes a team of people who understand how to maneuver those things. So it was really just, it was kind of a moment for everybody. Any other questions? Yes. It was settled. DC is now out of California, so technically, yes, it was out of California. DC is no longer in New York City, and they haven't been for a couple years now. Any other questions? I'm sorry, that light is killing me. Yeah? No? All right, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.